And I will now open the special closed session for the Potter Valley Healthcare District. So Rosie, if you could give us a roll call for tonight's closed session.
Yes, Director Gallagher,
Yes, here.
Director Cavazos.
Yes.
Director Pimentel.
Yes.
Director Cox. Yep. Chair Nix.
Here. We have two items on this special closed session for tonight. Rosie, if you could.
Yes, the first item is conference with the legal counsel on anticipated litigation. And the second item is conference with real property negotiators.
Is there anyone raise hand? Are there any raised hands online, Rosie?
No. Yes, sir.
Anyone wishing to speak on either of these two closed session items? Please, Butch.
Yeah, I don't know, I think it's just curiosity, but if I'm correct to understand, we're talking about the buying the property and the building back.
That is what,
That's what we're talking about in this.
those are the addresses, yes, listed on the closed session.
And do we know who? I mean, it seems like we don't know much about that, the public, we being the public, don't know much about what's going on. Dude, who's handling this? Who's the realtor that's handling this? Is there a realtor? And I mean, I know this is just for comment, but those are questions that people have. Who's handling this? And you know, why aren't there more specifics known, excuse me, to the public? Like, has there been an offer made? Has there been a counter? All that stuff, that when you're buying a house, it's all public knowledge. Why don't we know anything about that?
Thanks, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? We go into closed session. Okay, seeing none, we will be back. I don't know when, but we will be back. Thank you.
Say shortly.
Well, I don't know.
Say shortly. Have a plan.
Yeah, Joe, ready? Ready? I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Potter Valley Healthcare District. Rosie, if you could give us a roll call.
Oh, yeah, Director Gallagher.
Yes,
Director Cavazos.
Yes.
Director Pimentel.
Yes.
Director Cox. Yes, I'm Chair Nix.
Thank you. Do we have anything to report out of closed session?
Yes, we do. We have a motion for, to give staff the authority to exercise the purchase option as soon as possible, so a closing may occur before the end of the year. This motion was made by Director Pimentel, seconded by Director Gallagher, and unanimous vote in favor of.
Thank you. So now, are there any agenda modifications for consideration on today's agenda from staff? So just one that, item number 3 on the consent agenda is a receive and file item, and that's just a, budget update from, CFO Julie. As we received that report, for the hospital corporation. I'll now open the public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. Rosie, any raised hands online?
No hands on mine.
Anyone in public? No? So I'll close the public, comment for, matters not on tonight's agenda, and, I'll ask if there are any comments from them before we, get into the consent agenda. Okay, seeing none, we have, 3 items on, the consent agenda. Rosie, if you could.
Yes, the first item is the minute approval from August 2024. The second item is the financial officer monthly financial performance update. The third item is the 2025 budget update.
Any questions, for staff before we go out to the public for a comment on this? Okay, seeing none, Rosie, any raised hands online for this?
No hands on.
Any, none, no raised hands in person, so, I'll come back to the board for a motion on the consent calendar.
Move approval of consent.
Who wants the
I'll be a
first?
second.
So first, Katie with the second.
Thank you. Director Gallagher,
Yes.
Director Devontas.
Yes.
Director Pimentel.
Yes.
Director Cost.
Yep.
Chairman.
Yes. Okay, so move on to our discussion items. This is item number 4, consideration of the Corporate Crimes Against Healthcare Act of 2024 endorsement. Steve?
Yeah, I can summarize that briefly for you. So during the July 31st meeting of our Healthcare District Board, the board adopted a policy with regards to the board of directors expressing support or opposition to pending federal, state, or local legislation or state and local ballot propositions and measures. And so that is relevant in this case because on June 11th of 2024, United States Senators Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey of Massachusetts introduced what they refer to as the Corporate Crimes Against Healthcare Act for consideration by the US Congress. This would create criminal penalties and provide state attorneys general and the United States Department of Justice with the power to claw back compensation for executives who quote unquote loot healthcare entities like nursing homes and hospitals if that looting results in a patient's death. This is all related to private equity takeovers of healthcare organizations where they have had some instances with that in Massachusetts. It would require healthcare providers receiving federal funding to publicly report mergers and acquisitions, and it would mandate reporting to Congress on the harms of the corporatization in healthcare. The argument can be made that this act aligns closely with the mission, vision, and values of PVHCD by putting patients over corporate profits. And so the question here is whether this body ought to take adopt a resolution in support of that act.
Do we have any questions for Steve? And maybe we can also talk about how this item came before us if Director Gallagher, if you'd like to.
I'm happy to. I first saw this in Becker's Hospital Review and was pretty excited when Tony and I went to the MEC to talk about Measure N. Jack Watson brought it up and said that the MEC had passed a motion in support of it and was hoping for board support to take it to California Medical Association. The meeting is the end of October. I think it's obvious having both bodies in support of it would give CMA sort of a clear message from us. Jack recently did tell me that nothing much has happened in Washington since the bond or the bill was submitted by the 2 Massachusetts senators. That's how it came to us.
Thank you. Any questions before we open up to public comment? Okay, Rosie, any raised hands online?
No hands on mine.
Anyone wishing to speak on this? Any comments before before I entertain a motion here, or would anyone like to make a motion on this?
I'd like to move approval of the resolution.
I'll second.
Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Pimento? Director Cox? Yep. Chair News.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, of course. Now we'll move on to item number 5. This is the consideration of the Measure B endorsement. And Steve, I'll also tee this up for us.
Yeah, thank you. So with the same policy with regards to the Board of Directors expressing support or opposition to pending local ballot propositions and measures. On November 5th of this year, the general ballot election, voters in the city of Watsonville will have the opportunity to vote yes or no on Measure B, which poses the question, shall the measure amending the charter of the city of Watsonville to modify the eligibility requirement for appointment to all boards and commissions created pursuant to the Watsonville Charter from registered voter to resident of the city of Watsonville be adopted? So essentially what this is, what this measure is proposing is to amend the city of Watsonville's charter so that people can serve on boards or commissions if they are a resident of the city of Watsonville and do not necessarily need to be a registered voter. Proponents of Measure V have come here and asked to speak on behalf of the Yes on Measure V campaign to ask the Pajaro Valley Healthcare District Board for an official endorsement of Measure V. I think Maria Cardenas is here from that team to tell us a little bit more. Maria, are you there?
Maria, we can't hear you. We see you. But we cannot hear you.
We're sure our volume is up.
Let me,
We haven't heard anything.
The ability to talk, on her phone, she's also logged in that way.
That me trying to load it back.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Maria.
Okay. Hi, I'm sorry, I lost the video, but you can hear me and I think that's the important part. So,
Yes.
Thank you everybody for giving me a little bit of time to share about Measure V. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for working so late in the evening for the benefit of the community. Just grateful for your service. So I'm the Director of Ventures. We've been involved with the community in making sure that the voices of everybody are reflected in local governance, because we believe strongly that it really leads to better policy. Measure B, as it was shared, is about amending the charter to allow all residents of the city to be eligible for appointments by the elected city council to boards and commissions. This change aligns Watsonville with the state of California, the county of Santa Cruz, the city of Santa Cruz, and most other charter cities. This change really is about moving Watsonville forward and allowing tax-paying residents the opportunity to serve the city. It doesn't change the duties and responsibilities and privileges of the elected city council. The city council is still fully responsible for appointments and approvals of any direction that the commissions or boards request. And the city charter remains in place, the fact that boards and commissions are advisory bodies that reflect the makeup of the community. So again, this change is simply facilitating the expansion of who can serve in boards and commissions for the city of Watsonville and aligns it to the state and the county and again, most charter cities and how people can serve their representative government. There's really no difference or cost or any negative aspect that we can foresee. And we would love to have the support of the district.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any questions for either Steve, or Maria at this time before I open up to public comment? No, seeing none, Rosie, are there any raised hands online?
No hands raised online.
Anyone wishing to make public comment on this? No, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion or, comments or questions from the board.
I have no questions, and I'll happily and strongly move in favor of that recommendation and the request to support Measure B.
Yeah,
Second. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Tomasic?
Yes.
Director Pennell?
Yes.
Director Powell? Yep. Chair News.
yes, and before we move on, just want to say, Maria, just thank you for your work on this and appreciate you bringing this forward to the board. I think these sorts of small incremental steps in the right direction in local governance are extremely important. To be able to have a good say and a good feel for the values of our community. And so just thank you for your work on this. Thank you for bringing this forward, and good luck with this in November.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Have a great night.
Absolutely, you too.
Okay, now move on to the Measure N Oversight Committee formation. I believe Steve is also. It's
Yeah, so with the passage of Measure N, we have, and with the first issuance of bond funds from Measure N having closed in mid-December, it's now time to form the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and begin the recruitment for committee members. So we have before you the proposed bylaws that BBK helped us write as we're and we had some examples from cities and counties that had similar bond oversight committees. And obviously, like I said, legal input into the bylaws as they are written in your packet. And we would like to be able to move forward with approval of the bylaws and direction from the board's authority for really Rosie and me to start putting online application for community members to start applying for being on the Citizens Oversight Committee.
any questions from the board, please, Jeff?
Steve, when I read the proposed bylaws, it looks like the key power of the committee is to approve the expenditures after the fact. When I initially heard about the Citizens Oversight Committee, that was a key element of Measure N, community participation, early input. And so I would like to propose two suggested changes to the bylaws. One is in section 6.1, the regular meetings. The simple addition shall meet as needed and at least twice a year. And then the other one, I don't particularly have wording, but it would be under section 3, the duties, which would be early input from the members of the committee to review and buy in to the proposed projects. I understand that the projects have really already mostly or completely been set by Measure N itself. But I think early on or front end buy-in would be an important part of community engagement, et cetera. So I would propose in addition to section 3, probably fits as a change 3.2 to say the committee members shall have the opportunity to comment and review proposed projects before they're undertaken.
Got it.
That would be my proposed change, 2 changes.
I'm totally good with the first one. And
Yeah.
I think might have some questions about the second one. Jim, you might have had some questions, but I'd love to hear from Noel too.
Sure.
Yeah, how about Noel? Noel, if you can.
Yeah, so I need to talk to our bond team that put this together because my understanding is this committee doesn't really have authority to decide how the funds are spent. But I would need to have them weigh in on that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, I'm not proposing that they do, that they could veto it, you know, the budget or
Yeah.
the proposal, but rather than having it be, we're all done, here's the final accounting of it, please sign here. That seems much less than what I had hoped for, and other members of the community had approached me saying, yeah, I'd really like to participate in this. So if we need to do legal review to get something acceptable, it completely makes sense.
So then, so Joe, just like in practice, what would that look like for the oversight committee? So they would we would appoint the members, they would have their first meeting, and then what would that look like in practice for you, for them to?
I could imagine there would be a list of projects that have been defined in the bond. These are things that we need to do. And then to have a sort of description of the projects, why, where, what the projected expenditures are, to have people buy in. Not that they have officially have an opportunity to veto but for comment and like I say, buy in.
So you're hoping to introduce a project to the public, but they don't get to say anything about it. Because they're not gonna say, no, you're not buying the MRI machines before you do this, right? So, well, we had a list, it was published, the list exists. We're not gonna modify it unless something comes up and we have to do that, but can that group modify that list? Or question the cost of the MRI machine?
I wouldn't expect that they could question, but they could say, here's what an MRI machine costs, and we made a
That's too much
decision.
work for staff.
I think it's one of those things that becomes community engagement. And like I say, as I say, buy-in, the community's gonna be paying a couple $100 extra per year for 30 years to do this. I think as much public relations as we can do around this. I'm not proposing that they get to do anything officially other than saying, yes, this is how the money was spent, we agree. But I would propose that we make an attempt.
So still in practice then, Joe, then what it would look like is for them to have the list of projects before we start to make expenditures, and for them to be able to comment on that, or what would it look like in?
I think it would be an initial meeting to say, much of this has had to be decided.
Right.
Here's what we need to do. We'd like your thoughts about how we best do this and have a discussion. And I don't think that's a hollow gesture or wasted time. That would be my suggestion.
So
Is
you're,
that enough content?
I think so. I think so then from those comments, we would then take that into consideration as we move forward.
There may be
through that.
useful information that people have experience with, similar projects, et cetera, depending on the makeup of the committee. And I'm not talking about an extensive, laborious series of meetings or extensive committee. I'm talking about an initial kicking off, if you will, type process.
Please, yeah.
so we bring the list that was with the founder for sure. And they disagreed to the list, but we asked. So what do we do now?
We asked, oh, if you disagree with this.
Well, we presented, we're not gonna present it for them to just nod their head, they're gonna give input as you're asking. And I'm totally okay with community input. This just scares me because it's a very specific list. And it's not like what other project does the community think we should do? We have a list.
I don't think they get to veto or modify the list. I think the job of staff, and I feel like to participate, is to help to convince the participants that this is what we need to do. We've been in the building for 25 years, and these are the things, and this is what our best estimate of its cost and completion times, and get nods.
So Noel, just in practice, would we need to add something and to the actual text of this resolution for us to say in that first meeting, what we're gonna do is bring everyone up to speed of this is the project list and we'd like your feedback, and to essentially what Dr. Gallagher is asking for. I mean, would we need to add that, or is that just something that we could put on an agenda and make sure that we do in that first meeting?
Well, I think you're gonna have to tweak the bylaws, because the bylaws clearly have in there what is outside of the authority in that paragraph 3.5, which includes, B is the establishment of priorities under construction, which I think is, one of the things that's talked about here. So we would need to understand how this doesn't go in contrast to what's in 3.5. Marcella's point is well taken in that you're kind of setting this up for a problem because the committee will believe that they have certain powers that they don't. But to answer your question, Tony, I think it would take a tweak to the bylaws.
For us to just come into that first meeting and say, here's the project list, what do you think? And then with no promise of us like adjusting that project list in any shape or fashion, for us to just.
Probably, as long as I just want to make sure expectations are not being set that won't be met. But yeah, I mean that makes sense. You say here are the 7 things that we want to do with the money.
Not that we want to do, but that we can do, right? Like this
that we're
is all
going to do.
Yeah.
The bylaws suggest that the meetings happen after the.
And their job is to see that we didn't waste the money,
Correct.
that we used it correctly.
Correct.
And it's just, that's the job of the oversight, is to make sure we use the money as it was intended.
Correct.
Didn't like buy a car in the process, That's my understanding of the oversight committee. But you know what, when they get appointed, we can send them a list of the projects for their, so that they know what the projects were intended to do. We can send them a list and they can email us back if they have comments.
That would sort of solve it for me.
Yeah.
With a description of how we got here.
Yeah.
We had to do this as we wrote Measure N. This is what staff believes we need to do. That would solve it.
And then also to that too, Joe, it's
Thank you.
from the early polling that we did, these are I think it's 7 projects or with the additional 8 of like, if we have any money left over, which I don't think we will because of how expensive everything is. These are the projects that resonated with people when we did the early polling, right? What it was that they think that their hospital needs to improve on, right? So that's, I think, as we were doing some of the outreach for the measure, that was the one thing that people were asking, like, well, what are you gonna do? And how'd you come up with it? It's like, well, we did outreach to the community and talked with staff, talked with our C-suite team, and these are the projects that we think are definitely most need, but then also that the community is saying, hey, you should also, expand their emergency room. That's a huge need in our community, so stuff like that.
So they get affected.
Yeah. I
This all
think
sounds
that's
good.
It sounds like
I think
really important onboarding step. I think
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to not miss the public relations opportunity here.
And an email to respond if you have any comments. I mean, we have to give them a way to respond.
Yeah, totally. And I would hope that they would also, whoever the chair or co-chairs would be of the committee would come and make regular presentations to us, right? And it's typically how we
That's
see
in the
that,
bylaws.
how we see that,
Yeah.
the oversight committees work and, it is a great piece for community engagement. I think this is really great. To be able to say, hey, I voted for this, or maybe I didn't vote for this. I'd love to get someone on there who didn't vote for this, to give the proof of concept of what we thought was good for the community. Just a quick question about the application. So that's gonna go up online. Obviously, if we approve this resolution for potential members who would want to join this.
Yep.
And English, Spanish, kind of the outreach, do we have an outreach plan yet, Steve, in place for putting this up there? Or are we still kind of?
We're still working on that.
Okay.
I think we've got to provide just a few days and we can get all that together. We have a first draft of the application.
I think I saw Rose form. Yeah.
Like we said, we got to make sure it's in Spanish as well and come up with timelines, probably give 30 to 60 days for people to apply. And then see how many we get. come back to the board and recommend members.
You mean the
Okay,
final?
perfect.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Hopefully
You
timeline
did it right.
after November election, right? Because I think people will be a little, some of the folks that might want to serve on this might be busy doing other things, but, I trust you guys on the timeline of what these things will be going up. And then obviously whenever you guys have time to do it, there.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't spent any bond money yet, so.
Right.
And we'll have to do two in 2025.
Right.
So we got time.
And then they have to come back to us. The board meeting
Yes, they
before
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
they're-
The board will have to vote to approve the members. Yes.
Any other questions about the? No? Have I,
I think, I heard that we were gonna add 3 words, I think, to 6.1 as needed, or at least twice a year.
As needed.
Joe,
Is that your
Yeah.
request?
It says.
Yeah, I know.
That's fine.
So there's a front end meeting that seems
Yeah.
pretty innocuous. I propose that change.
so, can we get a second of the resolution with that? Then
Who's the first?
Joe
Me.
suggested.
I'll second.
Director Gallagher,
Yes.
Director Tomasi,
Yes.
Director Pimentel,
Yes.
Director Cox. Yes, Trudy News.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Noel.